Actually, this year is today. Different years, it's on different days because our calendar year doesn't exactly coordinate with the solar system. We have to add a year every 4 days. Every 4 years, we have to add a day. So most equinoxes are actually on the 20th, not the 21st. Different days, different years. Coincidentally, that's why March 20th is the best day to get married like I did.
So you're going to go.
So, yeah, my anniversary is the first day of spring, which is such a good coincidence of like birds singing and anniversaries and stuff. I love it.
So then you're not going to go
No. I would like to continue. Remember, students, don't ever turn left going off to Canyon Perdido from the high school road. They really do give you tickets.
Oh, they're so
Even if it's your anniversary and you're a fellow public servant. Yeah, Alpha Straight, right?
You ride a bike.
And make sure not today. I got on a bike after I dropped off my wife's car at the mechanic trying to be a bro with our anniversary. Hate being a bro. I know, that's right. Nice guys took a class. And whatever happened to solidarity between public servants? I swear.
What? That was when he let you off.
Yeah, you're a teacher, dude. Wait a minute. If I'm teaching the son of a cop, I'll be like, bro, thank you for serving society. I can cut you a little slack.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Wait, you currently have this obligation to this case or what?
I sure hope so. And if that's you, you're dead meat, bro. But no, I don't think I do. I have taught children of cops, and I truly believe that we owe a great debt to our civil servants. Yes. Okay. 9.1 is being stamped. You're copying 41 and 42 from the board. And I want to show you the trailer for tonight's after-school film. An Inconvenient Truth has all sorts of political baggage. You may know that Al Gore made an Inconvenient Truth after he won/lost the presidential election. And it's kind of unfortunate that it was made by Al Gore in a sense, because all of his political baggage has kind of weighed down the film a little bit. I don't think you're really going to benefit with all the little interruptions in the movie to discuss his political life. About 10 minutes of the movie is wasted on his childhood in Tennessee and elections, if anybody gives a crap about that. But the movie is an excellent review of assignments 9.3 and 9.4. The movie is an excellent review of assignments 9.3 and 9.4. Except for the rate of sea level rise, the movie is 100% accurate as far as I know. He got a lot of criticism for exaggerating the rate of sea level rise, and I'm not sure if that was an accident, intentionally biased, if it was just because he had outdated research or because somebody made a typo in the script. I don't really know why it's exaggerated. Just so that you know, I am aware that it is inaccurate in the movie where they talk about how much sea level goes up. Otherwise, the movie's excellent. Great way to get ready for the exam. How many of you have already seen Inconvenient Truth?
The animation.
Yeah, me too. With the frog. Yeah, I also like the thing where he gets up on he shows temperature records, and he's like, I'm going to need to get up on this thing, and he gets on the high lift thing. That's so cool. So anyway, Here comes the trailer while you finish copying. I know. About an hour and a half. I think closer to 2 hours is the most time you waste talking about it.
If you look at the 10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years. And the hottest of all was 2005. Scientific consensus is that we are causing global warming. I am Al Gore. I used to be the next president of the United States of America. This is Patagonia 75 years ago and the same glacier today. This is Mount Kilimanjaro 30 years ago and last year. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro. This is really not a political issue so much as a moral issue. Temperature increases are taking place all over the world, and that's causing stronger storms. The biggest crisis in the history of this country. Early this morning, Hurricane Katrina slammed into New Orleans. Is it possible that we should prepare against other threats besides terrorism? From Paramount Classics comes a film that has shocked audiences everywhere they've seen it. The artist is experiencing faster melting. If this were to go, sea level worldwide would go up 20 feet. This is what would happen in Florida. Around Shanghai, only 40 million people. The area around Calcutta, 60 million. Here's Manhattan. It's a water trade exaggeration. A lot of people got pissed about. Think of the impact. A couple 100,000 refugees, and then imagine 100 million. We have to act together to solve this global crisis. Our ability to live is what is at stake.
I have to apologize for all the baggage that this film must raise. If a prominent and infamous Republican had made the film and it were equally relevant to the course, I'd love to show it. This is not because of Al Gore's hand. I couldn't care less about Al Gore, frankly. It is like a really good way to review for the exam. You'll be shocked, like, when you're watching the movie, it's like, oh, study goal 17, 18, 19. Like, he keeps hitting a whole bunch of our study goals. So I find it to be surprisingly relevant to this class. The most curricularly aligned movie of the year. Okay. If there is nothing else about the after-school film, I'd like to remind you that if you don't buy your AP exam before spring break, it becomes more expensive after the break. A couple weeks after the break, it becomes much more expensive. So please make sure that you purchase your exams before spring break. Oh, and there's another bummer. If your exam shows up early, you have the opportunity to save about 40 minutes of test day by pre-bubbling the answer sheet. If you order after spring break, your exam shows up after that opportunity. So you'll have to stay an extra 30 to 50 minutes in the exam room after everybody else leaves for lunch. So heads up, it's not just the late fee, it's also the opportunity to shorten your test day. Okay. So did we finish discussing the chimney effect yesterday, and indoor air pollution, and radon? We talked about radon? If that's the case, we're ready jump into ozone. And I need to start ozone with a conversation about ultraviolet radiation in the atmosphere. Please look over here. I know that you may not have been able to read everything, so I'll read to you everything in these boxes. Just like visible light is a spectrum that includes different colors, ultraviolet is a spectrum that includes different types of ultraviolet radiation. We call them UVA, UVB, and UVC. These have different wavelengths, and because they have different wavelengths, they have different energy levels. Does everybody realize that lambda means wavelength? And here's a good way to remember this pattern. Imagine that a long wavelength, please look at me, a long wavelength only has to go up a couple of times. In other words, if it's a long wavelength that went over 1, 2 hurdles, and jumping 2 hurdles is not that exhausting. Compared to a very short wavelength, you can see that I'm going over hurdle after 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 hurdle. That's pretty exhausting. So it takes a lot of energy to go up and down a lot. But it takes just a little bit of energy if you have a longer wavelength. So, long wavelength, low energy, short wavelength, high energy. Everybody cool with that pattern? Questions about that part? I'd love to help on the way before we get more complicated.
So short is high energy, long is low energy?
Correct. Short wavelength is high energy. That's right. Anybody else? All right. Next. The idea of blocking radiation is really hard to explain out of context. If you understand the idea of bond length, you've had a bit of higher level chemistry and some molecular physics, then blockage is a perfectly simple thing and everybody knows what it means. For the rest of you, rather than explain why it happens, I kind of need to ask you to take my word for this. And I'm sorry to trivialize this content, but it's just not something I can fit into our class. So please take my word for the following, and this is critical knowledge, totally critical knowledge. You won't be able to understand the rest of the unit if you don't see this part. Ultraviolet A, because of its very long wavelength, can squeeze between the atoms of every molecule in the atmosphere, so it's not blocked at all. Ultraviolet A is not blocked by the atmosphere. 100% hits the Earth, and it's bad for us because it does have enough energy to break DNA bonds. And when you have broken bonds, your cells might make a mistake, like getting stuck in the growth mode, which is what we call skin cancer. This is the #1 cause of skin cancer. Ultraviolet A.
So sunblock blocks that.
Sunblock should block ultraviolet A, at least for a while. And I gotta tell you, our bodies were not built to solve the problems of being an elderly human because we did not survive to old age in our evolutionary path. Usually, you died of broken bones or cavities or saber-toothed lion attacks way before you developed skin cancer. So that's a weakness that evolution never fixed. Nowadays, if you want to live to be at least my age or older, you've got to wear sunblock. That's not because of ozone depletion.